All right, the whole reason we come down to SEC Media Days, talk to Rusty, Mansell,
one and done. And
we're
you're good.
packing up after this.
After this, we're hitting Tootsies. It's on. Cousin Shane, he's been ready to rock and roll.
How you doing, Rusty?
Good, man. Thank y'all for having me. First off, I want to say thank you. I mean, I've done a lot in 13 years, but I'm telling you, being on your podcast and kind of telling my story, which really, I don't know the intention that day, but we kind of just got talking. An hour later, it was over with. But I can't tell you how many people reached out to me and was like, "Dang, that was cool." I listened to the whole hour. I was like, "Well, good, you know." And I appreciate it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then you hooked me up on Feinbaum. I was telling you guys a story. I'm driving down the road and my phone blows up. I'm like, "What is going on?" They're like, "Dude, they're talking about you on Feinbaum." I was like, I either got my 50-year scholarship back or something's not good, but I appreciate the kind words, man.
Well,
Thank
I'm just
you so
trying
much.
to repay for everything you've done. You've been one of the best to me.
I appreciate it.
You know,
awesome.
you got to pay it forward, you know?
I feel like we're just, you know, your vibe and y'all's vibe, just a couple of dudes just talking ball, man. You know, that's kind of me. People ask me things. I'm like, look, there's a million people that can do this. It's like being in a barbershop, man, talking ball.
Yep.
That's right.
So
I just like the recruiting side of it. Just listen. I would love to be a fly on the wall. Just
crazy. The
relive
Reuben Foster story. I got so many
best.
texts about that. So I was thinking I'm going to get a text from Reuben at some point going, damn, man, bust me out. But
is there any on your drive home you're like, man, I should have told them? Here's your shot right now.
Not, you know, probably not really. I mean, I told you, people ask me if I'm ever going to write a book. Maybe I will one day, and I'll get some in there. But I've got a ton, man. There's been some crazy, you know, stories, but to me, it's the success stories. You know, the kids I've covered, and you know, Eric Stokes, who was a last-minute Georgia flip that morning. I remember Georgia fans were like, "Man, what are we doing, taking this guy?" You know, and you know, 3 years later, this dude was a first-round draft pick. You know what I mean? And that's fun to watch those kind and those kids. So. I'm sure I'll remember one day, but I'll save it for the next time we're on. I'll see if I can remember. I'll make some notes like save that for that SEC podcast.
What's an underrated storyline for Georgia this year? Because it was this time last year. I had my quarterback rankings. You said, "Boy, you missed on Stetson. You were dead right." What's something maybe everybody's missing on Georgia right now?
You know, for me, I think Georgia. It's going to be better defensively. And the reason I say that is because they're going to be able to have more pass rush. If you think about the end of last year when they lost Nolan Smith in that Florida game, I kept thinking this Tennessee game, I don't know how they're going to create pressure because Nolan Smith was out and he was kind of their dude there.
Yep.
But ultimately Georgia kind of changed their philosophy and used guys like Smile Munden and them. They were bringing different pressures. So I think that Georgia this year, Marvin Jones Jr., who was a 5-star prospect, you know, 2 years ago, he had a torn labrum last year, so he was on a pitch count at the end of the year. Then you got Michael Williams, who came on late in the year. He was a 5-star. Many thought could have been the number 1 player in the country that wasn't a quarterback that year. So they'll have Michael, they'll have Marvin Jones Jr., and a guy, I'll give you a name right now. It might not be the first of the year, but by the time Georgia gets into that, what I think is that second half of the season, the bye week, then Florida, then you go to Knoxville, all those games. Damon Wilson, who was a 5-star outside linebacker from Venice, Florida last year. Georgia went head-to-head with Ohio State. So I think Georgia has guys, but I think they're going to be able to create more pressure. Now, they don't have a Jalen Carter. They don't. You're not going to replace what he could do by himself. But I do think as a group and a whole, what they like to do and when they've been successful, even when Kirby Smart was in Alabama, and some of those defenses he ran there, what they've been successful on is being able to have that guy on the edge, that Lorenzo Carter, those types of guys, and that allows everybody else to be more athletic. So they had to get a little more creative last year, I felt like, but defensively, people are not really saying a whole lot about them that I've seen so far.
What about on the offense side? Is there any guys that you're maybe not a household name yet, but you're thinking at the end of the season will be?
You know, they got a lot of experienced guys. The one guy, I think if you follow Georgia, Arian Smith, he might be the fastest player in the country. I mean, he's a 10-200 guy, but he's been banged up. He caught a ball early in that Tennessee game last year. He caught that wide open bust coverage against Ohio State. But he's been that guy because he's been banged up. He's just really a straight vertical line guy, but he's got a little he's a real twitchy kid. So if they can keep him healthy, I think with all the attention on Lab McConkey and everybody, obviously when you faced him, Brock Bowers, the guy you got to cover as well. I think Arians and enter Dominic Lovett. You know, Dominic Lovett
Yeah.
He got into Georgia pretty good last year. They had a great scouting report on him. I can tell you that. All they had to do was turn on one tape, and if he doesn't get hurt, man, who knows what's going on in that game? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you look at him, but I think Arian Smith is a guy that could be like, dang, Georgia's adding this guy, but he's got to stay healthy.
Do you think it's fair to say that they have completely flipped that Alabama? Because it used to be, I really think Alabama was in Georgia's head. Right now, I think Georgia is in Alabama's head, and specifically Nick Saban, because I know most expect Georgia to win the East, or obviously the East, the SEC, and the favorite to win it all. They should be. But if they don't get it done, we know the next 5-10 years, as long as Kirby's there, they're going to be in contention. You cannot say the same about Alabama. They've got 1 or 2 more years, I think. Well, maybe more. But
I said it 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Saban's got one. Yeah,
the pressure is on, though, for Alabama to catch up now.
I think I can answer it in this way, and I don't want to answer for Alabama, but I'll answer for Georgia. My thought is they're a very confident team. Yeah. They enter every game, no matter who's on that sideline, going, we can beat them now, because you've beat Alabama. You beat Ohio State. You've won these big games, when you found ways to win games like that. So I think, you look at that and go, this Georgia roster from these older kids, they've won a lot of football games. And you can go all the way back to you guys got Tennessee background. So, when you go back to the Peyton Manning year that they didn't win it, but they brought back a lot of kids on that team next year that won a lot of games. Yeah. You know what I mean? And T. Martin comes in and they win those games. So they had to get over the Florida hump. Georgia kind of had to get over that Alabama hump. So I think the confidence there is we can play with anybody, and every single week we expect to win. And I'll be honest, it's a great question. I don't know that internally every time they stepped on the field, Alabama, they probably felt that way, like, hey, we may not be able to beat these guys. You kind of finally get over that hump once. It'd be interesting. It's kind of a shame they didn't play last year, you know what I mean? Yeah. But next year, regardless, 2024, Georgia's going to go to Tuscaloosa. And that's going to be a totally different team now. As we dig into Georgia, this offensive line, they're going to lose 4 starters minimum probably. Brock Bowers, who's maybe the best tight end in the last 20 years. So it's going to be a different set of players going over there next year as we look forward. But I think to answer that question, I just think that Georgia's a really confident team. Well, they expect to win them all.
I'm already on record. If Georgia wins again and they go to Tuscaloosa and beat Nick Saban, he may pull a Spurrier and just say, I'm done.
You know what, man? My good buddy Tim Watts, who runs our Alabama, I told him about 5 years ago, I said, dude, Saban's got about 1 left. So every year he says to me, "Tex, you still think he's got 1 left?" I'm like, no, Tim. I was wrong, dude. So
how do you think he does leave? I mean, do you think he goes out like he's waiting for that final championship opportunity, or do you feel like he lets everyone know this is his final season?
Man, I tell you what, I don't know what makes him stop, because everybody that I don't know him at all personally.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that know him, and this guy is wired to be a football coach.
Yeah.
He's not going to – he don't have that own Golden Pond dream. Like, he ain't up there in a canoe with Miss Terry fishing. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to have this competitive drive to him. So I'll be honest with you, man, I don't know how. People's like, well, if he wins one, he might walk off. Very well could. But if he loses another game, I don't know that Nick Saban is going to sit there and say, that's going to be my last memory. Like, this dude's got it in him, and it's incredible, like, health-wise. You look at him. Like, I turned 50 this week. I'm like, damn, you look old, dude. Like, you look rough. You know what I mean? You look at Nick Saban, and you're like, this guy's fresh, So
I saw him out there stretching with the guys. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm not going to get on the ground.
No,
I'll never get up.
No. But he's good for college football. Certainly, if he does walk away, he's going to be involved somehow, ESPN or somebody. It'd be crazy not to have him there. So it's a great question. I keep saying I quit saying it. Like, this is it for him. You just don't know.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge for Georgia this year? Do you think it is? They all say it's easier to get to the mountaintop than it is to stay there.
Yeah.
We're hearing all the stuff about the schedule.
Sure.
They should kill everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to seep into the locker room at some point.
That's complacency. How does Kirby handle that? They have those, internal leadership deals and all that kind of stuff. I think getting Cedric – he'll be here tomorrow. I don't know if you guys will get a chance to talk to him, but Cedric Van Pran is one of the most impressive kids you'll ever meet. Like, he is super sharp. And getting him to come back this year, because you don't really want to replace a quarterback and a center. You know what I mean? So those two – I mean, he makes the calls for protections. And with Carson Beck, who I think is going to be the guy, not having a ton of, obviously, like real experience, I think complacency, what goes in the locker room, because I don't care who you are, privately, you got a really good team, and everybody tells you how good you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kirby Smart can go in there and all that 7-5 stuff. Nolan Smith's uncle, he ain't coming in the locker room this year going, they hate y'all. Nobody believes in y'all. Everybody's like, who? Like, I cover this team. Nobody tell y'all going 7-5 if that's what you want to hear. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. Players on the sideline now, championship again, saying that y'all saw we were going to be 7-5. No, nobody in the world, in the free world, say y'all going to be 7-5.
Did Kirby? Did he say anything about live streaming or recording in the studio? Is there an unwritten rule now?
No, man. I tell you that whole deal. When I saw Nolan interviewed, Nolan said, I may have made that up. I'm not going to get guilty. I loved it. I've known Nolan for a long time, so I thought that was great to hear him say that.
Is there any game on the schedule that you circle? I mean, obviously everyone's looking at Tennessee, but
that's it. That's not the only one for me, but I think Tate Ratledge would agree with me walking into Neyland. Yeah. I don't get Tate in trouble, but you walk into that place, and I don't care if Tennessee is just say they're 7-3.
Right.
They're going to get Tennessee's best, and they're going to get Tennessee's fan base the best because they know what Georgia fan base rose up last year. That place was crazy loud. Neyland's going to be rocking and rolling. So, I think when you look at that game, it's hard not to look down there and see, what's going to be at stake at that point. I've kind of been in a little bit of a bubble this summer and hadn't really read a ton on everybody. I'm kind of seeing people think like South Carolina is that trendy kind of pick, and they got a quarterback coming back, and they finished a year high. But I'm kind of thinking Tennessee's going to be better than people are kind of looking at, because I think it's the system, and what does Joe Milton do? You know what I mean? Yeah. He's such a mature man. You know what I mean? He's got this huge arm, and can they replace these wide receivers? And some of those things will be the questions for them. But I just think that Georgia going into that game, and listen, South Carolina always has played Georgia tough for whatever reason. Florida, I think, they got quarterback questions. What will happen there? But when you look at Tennessee and you go to Neyland, that place is going to be, you talking about unhinged? Now, that Vol Navy's going to roll up about Tuesday. They're going to be deep for that game. So
yeah, we had your colleague Grant Firking on here.
Yeah.
He fired up Shane about what Josh Heupel and the Vols are going to do this year.
Well, they chest bump right here.
Yeah.
So, I tell you what, man, you talking about a stud, Grant. I just got a chance to meet him the last couple of months. You know what I mean? I kind of read his story, but, dude, we had that NIL event here on 3. Like, he was really the point man. You know what I mean? Like, there was questions going on. They were going to him, and I thought, man, this kid's sharp. And then the more time I spent around him, so I told Shannon, I said, I don't know how long we're going to have that guy. You better enjoy it.
Dude,
he's
dialed in.
He's sharp.
And motivating. I was like, man, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something. Don't follow him on Instagram. It'll crush your soul. Now, this dude's like, he's in like Cape Cod one weekend, the Bahamas the next. I'm like, dude, I just went to PCB for 4 days. Pineapple Willie's. I thought I was doing something, So, but Grant's sharp, and he's a very, very big piece of our puzzle. And Shannon, I'll tell you, Shannon, I've talked about him a million times, but the one thing that Shannon I thought's had a great eye. He's basically the one that found Josh Pate. You know what I mean? And when you come across Grant and you give him that much kind of power and authority and freedom to do, to become who you are, and I think Grant's going to be – that's going to be a hell of a bet for me, because I'm going to be dealing with Grant, Austin Price. I mean, this Georgia-Tennessee game this year is going to be – I don't know what's going to be on the line, man. I'm about to wear like a Peyton Manning jersey for like a month straight or something if they lose that one. So we'll have some fun with Hubs and those guys. So really glad they all of us are on 3 together. Yeah,
and one other, don't overlook Kentucky. Kentucky, for whatever reason, plays Georgia tough. They're very physical.
Always.
I like what they have at quarterback. They bring back Coleman, OC. I know that game's in Athens, but still, they even play Georgia tough down there.
Dude, Missouri had Georgia on the ropes last year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not – I always caution Georgia fans, like, hey, listen now. It's a gauntlet every week. You know what I mean? And I've done some interviews here, and it's really a shame. I don't understand the thought process of why Georgia's not playing Oklahoma this year.
Yeah.
You didn't get them in 24. Might as well just let them play this year, and But how great would it have been if, listen to this now, if it had been Georgia at Oklahoma and Texas at Bama week 2.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about not getting nothing done on a Saturday. I mean, it would have been over that week. So,
and I think that's really helped Georgia the last couple of years, opening against Clemson, opening against Oregon, keeping that team locked in.
I guarantee you if Kirby Smart sat in this chair right now and you ask him if he had a chance to play Oklahoma or Middle Tennessee or Ball State first game, he'd take Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Because it keeps the focus. You know what I mean? Like, Georgia's not fighting to play those games just for exposure. He understands what it does for the summertime. Like, you got to be prepared. His first game he ever did was that kickoff against North Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they scheduled all these deals, and then obviously you do this 4 or 5 years in advance.
Right.
But then the season kind of started. The SEC is expanded, so it's kind of taken out of his hands. But Georgia opens for Clemson next year in Mercedes-Benz.
Dude, we're talking about a soft schedule this year. That changes next year.
There was no. You knew it was bad when the Tennessee and Alabama fans were going, dang, man, I feel bad for y'all. That's a rough one. That's a rough schedule, man. And a sneaky game, you go to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin can dial up on you in a heartbeat. They play this year. Georgia plays Ole Miss this year.
That's my trap game right there.
Yeah.
Ole Miss.
Yeah. I mean, Lane Kiffin is hard to deal with in a one-game scenario because, Duke can call plays now. And if they get their quarterbacks rolling, that type of thing. So there's some games with Georgia that I think is going to make them a little bit tight as a fan base. But certainly this team is very capable of winning a national championship. Now, it's a lot of quarterback play. Carson Beck, I've said it all week.
Any surprise he's not here? Or
no,
really,
because
and
really, truthfully, if you think about the respect of a because he's not quote unquote named the starter yet.
Right.
I mean, they know this. That's probably going to be the guy they're going to roll with. But to me, to walk up here and you got to carry some weight in the locker room.
Yeah.
So Cedric Van Pran, Kamari Lassiter, and Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers would be good because we had him at the national championship, and he's kind of a man of few words. You know what I mean? But I told Georgia fans this week, you better enjoy 19 because these don't come around. Like this dude is really damn good. They don't come around often like this.
Anything at this event that you're hoping to learn from Georgia?
I'm interested in, just like early on because, sounds like there were some injuries the last week of spring practice with Smile Munden, who I think is one of the best linebackers around. And then Branson Robinson, who was another highly rated running back. If you look at Georgia right now, the wide receiver spot, I feel like they're loaded.
Right.
The O-line, they're loaded. The tight end room is stupid loaded. Running back is where you could – because people ask about Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo, this is a different skill set, what they're bringing in. This is not Todd Gurley, Keith Marshall, and wait, you got two freshmen, Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel waiting.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is Kendall Milton, who's been banged up his whole career, got hurt again in the spring. Branson Robinson, who's banged up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you lose Kenny McIntosh. So really, Mike Bobo, I personally think they're going to have to turn it loose, for a while. And kind of, find out who's Dejon Edwards going to be that guy. Is Kendall Milton going to be? Andrew Paul's coming in off of an ACL last year. So there's some questions at running back for sure. It's not your typical, when people think Mike Bobo, it's not that team that they had with what all those years he had. Let's get downhill and power out, run the ball, tall sweep. That's kind of that those days are over. They're not built like that anymore either.
Right.
So running back's kind of a weird deal. We all grew up. If you had a stud running back, it was on. But but now the game is so fast and it's played outside on the edge. You know what I mean? Jalen Hite and those guys are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to have the difference makers on the outside.
A little bit more of a committee too. It's the old 3 down back. You just don't see them too much.
No,
anymore.
the kids want to leave college with less carries.
Yeah.
The first group of kids that I covered that were like, hey, I want to go with you because I want less carries was Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be fresh as I can when I get there. If we get to the NFL, so that's kind of the deal now. Everybody, like, Georgia's trying to take 3 running backs in this class.
Yeah.
10 years ago, they'd be like, what are they thinking? You know what I mean? But now everybody's like, no, let's do it by committee.
Right.
It's all about getting to that second contract.
If you can get there. Nick, Saquon Barkley's in that deal right now where he's franchise or not. Nick did sign a deal, I think, 2 years ago because he was a second rounder, so he had a little more freedom on his deal. But I think Nick will probably wind up getting a pretty good – the day Todd Gurley that was the last big contract you probably ever see. But he got hurt, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that
He's
I
on
don't
my
know the
fantasy
running
team,
backs.
too.
Oh man, I'd be interested.
Sorry.
Still dagger, wasn't it? Still dagger. But I think when you look at that, what Saquon does this year, how if they franchise him, if they give him 5 years, because I hadn't seen one. I mean, look at Zeke at the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been pretty downhill since he got paid.
Absolutely.
So Nick Chubb.
They're afraid. Jacobs is another one,
Yeah.
He's talking about holding out.
Nick Chubb is wired different. He's not trying to get $100 million, but
yeah.
I mean, he's the second highest NFL career average, I think, per carry, 5.2 yards. Just working out the high school the other day, just every day getting ready.
What's he squatting these days?
They basically cut him off. Yeah. So the other day they have in his hometown, Cedartown, they have one of the best. He's a wheelchair athlete.
Yeah.
This guy does all the distance, and he's like one of the top in the world. So he brings this a wheelchair race to his hometown. And from what I read, Nick Chubb was not invited. He was not asked to come. Nick Chubb showed up to meet everybody at the finish line.
Wow.
Just unannounced.
Oh, that's cool.
You talking about like different?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, that's just the way he is.
Yeah.
And I asked him the other day when I saw him, I said, dude, I saw on Facebook that you just showed up and played pickleball in town. He was like, yeah, I just rolled up the court. I was like, well, who are you playing with? He's like, I don't know, some local kids. and like the kid's dad was like, hey, we picked him up. Like, Nick Chubb just played pickleball with us. And Dad was like, what? No, he didn't. They took a picture, He just rolled up to the old city courts and played some pickleball. He loves it. Loves pickleball. So
he's a pickleballer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I'm proud of what he's been going on.
Baby steps.
But right now, I'm not sure he wants to play pickleball with Nick. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
You got to think. Last question for Rusty.
Oh, man. No, I just appreciate you coming on.
It's awesome, man.
If you ever get one of them on 3 polos and about a 5X, you just bring them.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cut you a deal. You keep walking, and I'll get you a 4.
There you go.
Everybody's got that shirt in their closet, their wife or somebody wants to, baby, I'm going to get back into that.
Yeah.
And she's like, whatever. This thing's like spring of 98. I was like, look, I lost 2 pounds this weekend. You know what I mean? So
I got a whole wardrobe just like that.
Yeah.
I got to shrink down
Well,
and get into it.
it's tough to lose weight in this town, man. I tell you, that's one thing Nashville can cook.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
There's so many. Like, people, I saw a lot of people in the lobby hadn't been here in a while, and they're like, what happened? I was like, it's called growth. Quick. But
Somebody saw me got distracted there. You thought Daniels was walking by. No, they had a food tray they were bringing by.
Yeah, dude, it's great food here. And that's a good. Let me tell you something now. You want some food recommendations? My man Grant,
He knows them.
He is the mayor
he's
of
down
the
here. Yeah.
Tell you, don't follow him on Instagram. You'll stay hungry and stay broke because that man's living it up right now.
Before you go, Rusty, can you tell the audience where can they find all your work?
Anywhere on Twitter, Rusty Mansell _, MANSELO _, and then Instagram. I haven't had a chance to change my name yet because I've got the old blue check on Instagram. Don't know how that happened, but that's still Mansell 247. So eventually I will. We had the Instagram guy. We had the Instagram guy here at the On 3 NIL event. It was funny because I was like, I need to talk to this guy about if I change my name, do I lose all that? As soon as it got over, I didn't realize Instagram. That's those kids' world. They swarmed him.
Yeah.
Like, hey, one of us verify. Like one of us verify, And I remember Sammy Brown, who's the 5-star.
Yep.
Sammy's like, hey man, I was like, this guy needs to be verified. I can assure you, this guy needs to be verified. So I waited my turn and kind of talked to the guy from him. Said, look, if I change my name, and he gave me the email me and put this. Yeah, I didn't hear from him. So I know that the guy that works for Instagram gets hit up. There's no telling.
I'd imagine.
No telling. So. But it's fun. Thank you guys for having me, man.
So much,
Again,
Rusty.
I can't thank you enough for the kind words, man, you said about me. And you doing a good job, man.
Appreciate it.
And my mom, you got the proof from my mom now. My mom said, I'll just sit around and watch that podcast sometimes. So if the views go up about 3 every week, my mom's laying somewhere on the beach in Florida just watching it on her phone. So I appreciate that, man, so much.
I'll
Thank
cut
you,
it right
guys.
there.